Shalom, everybody, and today we are starting the book of VaYikra, Leviticus in Latin. In the Hebrew name VaYikra is usually the first word of the book. VaYikra means, and he called. We'll see what does it mean. It's also being called in the Jewish tradition Torat Kohanim, the wisdom of the Kohanim, the Kohen. Because it's most of the book is dealing with the work of the temple. Let us understand what is this book about. This is the third book of the 5 books of Moses. And what's in it for us? What does it mean for us? So as the Hebrew year is starting from Rosh Hashanah till Simchat Torah, and then we start to read Bereshit from the beginning. And the first book of Bereshit from the beginning, it's like we're starting a new cycle of our tikkun process. Every year is another cycle. The word in Hebrew, shana, a year, has the numerical value, gematria, 355. 355 is also the same gematria as Sephirah, which means every year is another Sephirah. It's also 355 days in the lunar calendar of 12 moons. Now that we understand that every year is another cycle of the tikkun, which means the cycle starts giving us another opportunity to upload our apps, to restart our abilities as human beings. And that's why we study about most of the Parashah is about Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, Sarah, Rivka, Rachel, Leah, Joseph, and the tribes. That, yes, it looks like externally a story of the founding family of monotheism. But really, when you study the Zohar and other Kabbalistic writings, this is basically all the codes you need in order to tune in to the universe, because it's all about the forces that are basically the universe is made of and how they apply or manifest in every person's psyche, in every person's thinking. So first of all, we have to know who we are, where we're coming from, what are we, and what are the forces in our lives. This is basically kind of childhood. This is the book of Genesis. Then comes the book of Exodus, we just finished reading. And it's about when you realize who you are, you need to wage the war against your enemy, against the slavery, and we are all slaves too. Our addictions, our materialism, our body, all the old mindsets that basically they are our Egypt individually for each one of us, which means they are the box that we are imprisoned within, that we need to simply release ourselves. And that goes through the whole book of Exodus. And as we explained last week, you start as a slave in the first Parashah, Parashat Shmot, just the beginning of the book of Exodus, and you end as a master of magic, Pekudei, when you can command the light, the spiritual light, the upper world, the upper Sephirot, you can command them into the actions of your own physical hands, which means the home you build, the business you build, the field you are plowing, the products that you generate and create, all of that, this is basically our job. Now that we got to that place and we realize how powerful we are and that we are supposed to be superhumans, applying those ideas, accepting those rules that we learned through the book of Exodus. Now comes the book of Leviticus, VaYikra, and it's about what is VaYikra, and he called, the calling. Who is calling? God is calling Moses. But it's about all of us. Again, we cannot relate to the five books of Moses, as a text that was right for then. And we read it because history, nostalgia, it's interesting, old wisdom. Whoever does that is basically missing the point, and shame. Okay, so what do we have in the first parasha? Parashat VaYikra. Parashat VaYikra is starting a whole range of parashot, and it says, dealing with the same story. Chapter 1, verse 1, VaYikra el Moshe, and he called to Moses, VaYdaber Adonai elav moed moed lemor. And God speaks to Moses from the tabernacle, saying, that's verse 1. Verse 2, Daber bnei Israel, talk to the children of Israel, ואמרת להם, and you tell them, Adam ki yakriv mikem korban laAdonai. When a person brings an offering to Hashem, to God, mina behema, mina bakar, mina tzon, takrivot korbanochem. You should bring the offering from the beasts, the animals. It's hard to translate because here Hebrew and English are not covering the terms are not covering the same thing. When it says behema, behema is a general name for usually when you're talking about behema, you're talking about animals eating grass. And also, it's not about, but not all of them, the ones who have hoofs. Okay? Now, from the behema, mina bakar or mina tzon, from the cattle and from the sheep. And we have a question, if you want to say cattle and sheep, why saying behema? Behema covers also camels. You cannot bring camels as offering. Pork, God forbid, you cannot bring pork as offering. Could be also horses is also behema. Donkey is also behema. Why you can't say from the beginning, mina bakar, mina tzon, from the cattle and from the sheep? Okay? So, first of all, we have to understand the topic from a different point, because a lot of people have a problem with the term, again, where it says, as we read it just right now, when it says the word korban. Okay, what did we say? Before the word behema, we said a person that will bring an offering from you, but it says from you, korban. Now, the word korban is common Israeli, or somebody who speaks fluent Hebrew will say korban. Usually, the translation will be sacrifice. Sacrifice is a very reactive word, passive. When is it that you make a sacrifice? Against your will. When you have no choice. When you're being forced. Because just the idea of bringing a sacrifice makes you already a victim. Okay? Think about it. In Hebrew, by the way, the word korban applies to a sacrifice and also applies to being a victim. Same word, okay? This association is very reactive, very low, and it cannot be used as a translation of the text, as we are going to see. So, to prove, we'll read the Zohar of Parashat VaYikra in a Sulam. So that's in Parasha Sulam, verse 51. Rabbi Chizkiah Havashchiach Kamei Rabbi Shimon. Rabbi Chizkiah, I'm reading the original Aramaic because that's the best way to connect to we're not learning the Zohar just from the curiosity. We also want to connect to the spiritual forces. And you can't get them only by the original language. Amar le said, so Rabbi Chizkiah, was visiting Rabbi Shimon. אמר לה, he said to him, היידי יקרה קורבן, קירוב מבא אלי, או קרבות, מהי קורבן? Okay, so what is Rabbi Chizkiah is asking? The fact that it's called korban, we should understand the word korban from the word keruv or krevut. Let me explain. Okay, the word korban in Hebrew, even more than Hebrew, as we said, somebody who has a feeling of a victim or victim consciousness, or as we're saying, bringing a sacrifice. That you have to give up something that is dear to you. While the shoresh of the word, remember again, Hebrew, not like English, is made of structures and sources. Shoresh, source, shoresh, the sound is easy for you to remember. Shoresh is 3 letters that they are the root. It's like when you have in physics an equation, x squared plus 3y minus z equals 0. Okay, so you have x, y, z. This x, y, z, the x, y, z, these are the 3 letters that you put in the equation, because Hebrew is not like English and many other languages that are built of words. In Hebrew, the words are built from the shoresh, the 3 letters X, Y, Z of the shoresh, and they're usually consonants, and the structure of the formula makes it passive, future, past, whatever. You have few structures like this in Hebrew. And then here comes the vowels. The vowels are part of the formula. So the letters over here of the word korban, keruv, karov, krevut, the letters are kuf, reish, bet. Kuf, reish, bet. So what Rabbi Chizkiah is saying, you can use that from the point of view of sacrifice or feeling victim. But you should use it, that's a spiritual way to use it, which is karov, kuf reish bet, lekarev, to bring close. Okay, you can, to bring closer, which means closeness. So the question is, how do you read that word? So what is the purpose of the korban? If you are an idol worshiper and you feel that God, the God you believe in, the idol you have faith in, is angry about you, you have to bring an offering or a sacrifice that will appease his wrath or anger, that you have no idea why it happens, or you have an idea, you know that you messed up. Okay? So, but what do? You bring the offering or the sacrifice because you want to appease your deity. When you are monotheistic, you cannot have that state of mind, because if you're monotheistic, God is one. And God is one means he's one this morning and this afternoon, and also in the evening. The same God. He never changes. I am God, I never change. The book of Malachi, chapter 12, which means God never changes, because he otherwise is not one. He is the one before and the one after. Can I change his mood? Of course not. Impossible. His endless bliss and love is it's not compromised. Cannot be compromised, which means I cannot change it. There's no way anyone, the whole of humanity cannot change it. So where is the anger of God? Oh, so when we block the flow through our dark actions, we can block the flow that is coming through the tree of life. And then the flow is basically emanating unconditionally from the Creator. However, we cannot enjoy it because we are not connected to it, because we chose to be on a different vibration, which means if somebody chooses to connect to the tree of life, there are some actions you have to do, because there is a law of affinity, which means similarities attract. You want to connect to the tree of life, you need to behave as such. How? That's called the Torah. What is the Torah about? The Torah is a book. It gives us all the rules. How do we connect our consciousness, actions, body, life, place of living, home, business, into the tree of life? How do we connect to the tree of life? When we take command, as we learned last week, over our thinking, over our emotions, over our actions, and we constantly command the light of the Creator to come into our lives in order to create our life as a place of dwelling for the light. How do you do that? So basically, the simplest idea is the idea of how do you inject infinity into a materialistic reality. Okay, materialistic body, materialistic objects, home, whatever. And the answer is everything, and that's the amazing explanation of Rabbi Ashlag, Bala Sulam. Everything that is a human being it's all about desires. We are creatures of desires. There's nothing wrong with the desires as long as they are not selfish. Why? The moment your desire is selfish, it doesn't matter in what direction. As moment as you are focused on a selfish desire, the fact is that at that moment, this desire is disconnected from the tree of life. Tree of life is about infinity and infinite flow of bliss, and selfishness is about finite. Why? You take, and that's it. It's gone. It's finished. There's no more joy out of it. Now you need something else to take off, to take something else in any level, and again, there's no continuity. However, whatever you take and you use that desire, that occasion, as a vehicle to turn it into also giving, which means I want to be rich so I can make a difference in other people's lives. I want to be wise so I can make a difference in other people's lives. I want to be healthy so I can do something for other people. The moment I turn my selfish desire into an altruistic, cyclic desire, which means I need to be stronger, richer, more powerful, and healthier because I'm doing something for others. I want to be happy, but I make other people happy also in the same instance. When you do that, you create a cycle. So there are 10 sefirot of the tree of life of receiving, 10 sefirot of giving, and the result is a system of 20 sefirot, 10 overlapping 10, and that creates the real complete tree of life. Now, then the bliss can flow. But we are humans, and humans are very good in messing up. So when we mess up, and that's part of what we do, okay, it's never the end. It's never eternal punishment. That's not monotheism. That's not one God. There's always an opportunity to get closer to the tree of life. And that's what Korban is about. How to get closer to the tree of life. So, lama nikra korban? So why it's called korban? Rabbi Ashlag is answering. אמר לו, הרי ידוע אצל החברים, ידיע הוא לגבי חבריה, קורבן מינו כתרין קדישין. The korban is there to get us closer to the holy crowns of the holy sefirot. למתקרבה כולו כחדה. When we make the korban, when we activate that korban, and we'll explain what does it mean. Then we get the sefirot closer, and when we unite the sefirot together, the upper and the lower, they become one, and the flow is simply there. They're all becoming one system of flow, they're connected to each other. And all of them till they all become one. In a complete unification. This is the purpose of the human life. להתקנה שמה קדישה כדכה זה. הדר דכתיב קורבן להשם, קורבן דינו כתרין קדישין להשם הוא, להתקנה שמה קדישה וליחדה לי כדכה יאות, בגין דשתכחו רחמין בכל העלמין, ושמה קדישה דיתתר ביתו יתבשמה כולה. I'll explain. So first of all, how do we see it? First of all, we see it in the words, and it says, Adam ki yakriv mikem, Adam, when he brings the offering, but the word yakriv means also he get closer, we will bring closer. He will get them together. What? Korban laHashem. It's an offering, it's a korban to the Tetragrammaton. Youdkevitch. That's what the Zohar is saying. By bringing the offering, you're really creating a union among the Sefirot of the Tree of Life that are represented in the Tetragrammaton, the Holy Name of God. So it starts with Adam, a human, Mina Behema. Where are you going to bring the offering from? From the beast. Who is the beast? Every human being has two sides. We have a human side, which is the way we got it from Adam, and we have the beastly side that we got it from the sin of Adam. The beastly side is the body with all its beastly inclinations, which means we know very well that when the soul is not into a body, the soul is really easily getting closer to God, to the Tree of Life. So what prevents us from connecting to the Tree of Life? The bodily inclinations that are coming from the beastly world, which means you have greed in humans, you can find greed among animals, you have competition among animals, you have competition among people. You have territorialism among animals, you have it among people. You have that, you have also like family, couple relations, family relations, all of that you can find in the animal world, and you can find them also in the human world. When you see that you compare and you see the patterns of behavior, you realize, like that's what Morris called it years ago, that the human being is just a naked ape. We are beasts. However, when we start to get closer to Adam, to the world of the Sefirot, to the Tree of Life, then we have to overcome the beastly part of our reality. That's why it says a beast. Then comes the details. There are the details. It has to be from the cattle and from the sheep, the flock. Sorry, sheep and goats. Okay, these are the only offerings. So you have, what does it mean? That when a person wants to get closer to the Tree of Life, to the Sefirot of the Youdkevitch, the Tetragrammaton, and to connect to those Sefirot and those illuminations or emanations, many times you need to bring an offering. So everywhere in many places, in the Talmud and the Zohar, whatever it says, when a person during the time of the temple, we're talking about Moses' temple was established some 33 centuries ago. It existed for basically almost 400 years. Also, when Moses' tabernacle was brought by Joshua to the Holy Land, it stayed mostly in its original form till King Solomon. King Solomon hid the tabernacle and built instead the temple. That lasted for another more than 400 years. And then the second temple lasted for another 400 years. So together we had more than 1,000 years, almost 1,400 years, maybe 1,500, it doesn't matter, that the children of Israel were using the temple and the offerings as the Zohar is explaining very carefully, a human being is bringing an animal as an offering. However, the human must be conscious on the idea that basically I have to get my own physical beastly body closer. How do I do that? So I have to be really concentrating with the offering, the animal that I brought as an offering, that basically it was supposed to be me who being slaughtered and brought as an offering, so I can elevate. So one of the common, most famous offerings was called Olah. Olah means ascending, going up, which means by doing the offering, you ascend to a higher frequency. However, you need your body also for tomorrow, so you bring an offering of this animal body, but you have to be aware that it was supposed to be your body. So there's a kind of symbiosis between the offering and the human being. Why? Because we know in the spiritual universe, when you allow someone else's ascent, you're being ascending yourself in the same level. So the beast who cannot rise to any level above this physical mundane malchut, the lowest level, but when the animal is being basically brought up on the altar, then the animal raises because it allows the human being to rise. However, just bringing an offering was not enough. So the Zohar is teaching us in volume 1 in the Zohar that if the person, or when the person who brings the offering is really doing an internal work that is really identifying himself with the animal, and he knows that basically the animal is allowing him to rise, and he needs to do a real teshuvah, raising his consciousness and connect with repentance and changes of way to the tree of life, then on the altar, there will be a fire coming from heaven, the shape of a lion. So then the priest would know that the person was really genuine and his offering basically succeeded because he really ascended to a high level and he really made it possible for all the letters of the name of Hashem that he, through his wrongdoings and misbehavior, got them separated, because we separate the letters, especially the Vav and the A, when we misbehave, because when we become very selfish and we let our beastly urges to overcome, then the hay is being separated from the Vav, the last A. And then there's no flow in the tree of life. However, when we really make a change of heart and with the offering, how do you know it's happening? The fire came on the offering, on the altar, looked like a lion. What if the person did not really make a change of heart? What if it was not genuine? What if it was just external? Okay, I brought a big ox as an offering, cost me a lot of money. That should be suffice. That should be enough. And then the Zohar says the fire came on the altar looked like a dog. The name of the dog was Bin Laden. Okay, that's what it says in the Zohar some 2,000 years ago. Okay, what does it mean? False, hypocrite faith in God. Yeah, you bring an offering. You don't really mean to change your consciousness and to raise yourself to a place of oneness with the Creator by changing your selfishness into altruism and into spiritual. Okay, now, so let's continue. So when we do this offering and we connect the letters of the name of God, which means we make the connection of the Sefirot together, and that can happen only when we, as we said, only when we make a change of our state of mind, overcoming the beastly, selfish, narrow-minded, small-minded thinking and emotions, and instead rising to somewhere much higher of compassion, love, responsibility, and so on. When a person does that, it affects not just himself, but it affects, as the Zohar says, to bring compassion to all the universes. And then the holy name will get its crowns, which means the illumination of the real light, and everything will be appeased. Verse 52 in the Zohar, and all of that to arouse compassion, to arouse mercy, and basically subdue the judgment. That's why when it says korban leHashem, korban, an offering to Hashem, to Youdkevitch, not to Elokim, which is judgment. But bringing an offering means slaughtering a life, a living thing. No, that's awakens mercy and compassion when a person identifies with the animal and he says, basically, I'm supposed to be there on the altar, but I'm exchanging with that beast. Because it says in Psalms 51, God's offerings are basically is a broken spirit. When somebody is really regretting what is done, that's God's offering. And that brings us to the next question, because the next question is, but we are not really having that opportunity right now. The temple in Jerusalem, the last time there were offerings brought over there, that was probably some in the year 70 CE, and that's a long time ago. What are we doing since? And the answer was written already in the book of Hosea, in Hosea 14:3, and it says, get yourself together. I'm trying to make a simplistic translation. Get yourself together and return to Hashem. Return to the tree of life. Return to the tree of life of compassion and mercy. Take only the good. And when we pay, instead of the oxen, we'll pay with our lips. It's not lip service. We pay really with our lips, which means instead of the offerings in the temple in Jerusalem, we have the daily prayers in the Hebrew prayer book. Each prayer replaces the ceremony of sacrifices and offerings in the temple. So the morning prayer is replacing the morning offerings. The afternoon prayer replaces the afternoon offerings, and the evening prayer replaces the evening's offerings. So we are really paying with our lips. And especially today, time is money. When a person sets his time aside and he prays with the depths of his heart, and he prays with a real kavanah to connect the letters together. And that's, by the way, whoever never did it. To learn how to do it, we have in our site the meditation of the Tetragrammaton meditation. You can look at it for it. Live Kabbalah TV channel on YouTube. And you can train yourself, because without training yourself, you're not going to do that. And by the way, a researcher just came lately from Harvard University, said very clearly, when people are daily focusing on thankfulness and meditation, they're capable of generating what we call happiness. Happiness can be acquired. Happiness can be achieved. Scientifically, it's being achieved by two things: daily meditation and thankfulness. If you look at the Hebrew prayer book, it has inside it has the thankfulness, and it's also having, but that you can find in the site, Live Kabbalah site, the course of prayers. Over there, we learn how the prayers, the daily prayers, are basically using the words and the sentences that were basically established, some of them during the time of the writing of the Torah, some of them later on as the temple was destroyed and there was a need to replace the offerings. So the Hebrew prayer book is basically doing both, generating thankfulness, and also teaching our minds, or taking our minds as an elevator to go through the branches of the tree of life. So we go up the branches, go bring the light and the bliss down the branches, and we unite all the sefirot of the tree of life together. And that's basically our daily job, our daily work. We're not bringing a sacrifice. It's not a sacrifice. It is A, us getting closer to the tree of life. B, when we make those prayers, we bring closer the sefirot of the tree of life. The result is that the bliss flows not just to our own life, but to our environment, to our community. It has an effect globally, which means our daily work is working basically for getting the world harmonized by our prayers and our meditations. So let's continue to see how the Zohar explains it. Okay. Because, as it says, so I'm still in the verse 52, and it says very simply, because mercy and compassion, that's what we need. We don't need judgment. כי רחמים צריכים ולא דין. אמר רבי חזקיה, אשרי חלקי ששאלתי. Rabbi Chizkiah is answered, I'm so worthy because I asked the question. והרווחתי דברים אלו, and I heard those words from Rabbi Shimon. וזהו בירורו של דבר. That's a real explanation of the thing, of what does it mean, all the stories of the sacrifices. And so we have another aspect over here, because Parashat VaYikra is talking about, so what is the purpose? As we said, human beings are very good at making a mess. So then we go to verse 4 in chapter 1 in Leviticus. ושמח ידו על ראש העולה ונרצה לו לכפר עליו. And the Kohen, the priest, will put his hand over the head of the offering, and the result will be that the person who brings the offering, he will achieve ונרצה לו, appeasement, לכפר עליו, an atonement. ושחט את בן הבקר לפני השם, and then the Kohen will slaughter the calf in front of God, in front of Hashem, Youdkevitch. So there are a lot of people that will say, but this is horrible, slaughtering, killing an animal. You have to remember that killing an animal, yes, could be a matter of cruelty. However, when the Kohen slaughter the animal, the rules of kosher slaughtering are, first of all, that the animal must not feel any pain. How is that being achieved? That the knife must be perfectly sharp, and the person who makes the slaughtering must check the knife all the time. Why? Because, I don't know if you know, but sometimes you get yourself cut by a very sharp object. You don't feel the cut because it was a very sharp object. Suddenly you see the bleeding. That can happen. So when the knife is very, very, very sharp, then the animal does not feel the cut. And the slaughtering must be done in a way that it cuts the arteries and the windpipe at once. So immediately at that moment, the blood stops flowing and the oxygen to the brain, and basically the animal is fainting. So there's no pain. If there's a pain, how do you know there's a pain? If the shochet is touching the knife and there's a flow in the knife, it means the animal felt the pain, and that means that animal is not kosher to be eaten. So that's the secret of a kosher meat. Now they're trying to eliminate or to outlaw kosher slaughtering. They already did it in part of Europe, and I think this week the Supreme Court of Europe, but they didn't outlaw hunting. I think hunting is much more cruel than slaughtering in such a way. Okay, but that's not our job to judge. And we are here, so the slaughtering was in a way to raise the beastly animal. Remember, an animal is still part of the universe. It's part of us, because all of the living life on this planet, we are all one ecosystem, not just physically, but also metaphysically. We are all connected to each other. So when the offerings in the temple, there were offerings from the inanimate kingdom, from the vegetable kingdom, from the animal kingdom, that was all for the purpose of raising all kingdoms and connecting all of them to be one. So we can create a harmony that was basically the job of the temple, to create harmony around the whole planet. So as we said, הרי כתוב זבחי אלוקים רוח נשברה, as we said from Psalms 51, which means the offerings, first of all, start from the broken spirit, from the person really coming from a place of a broken spirit. I know I made a mistake, I regret. You know, there are all the different steps of real teshuvah. You have to know that you did something wrong. You have to take upon yourself not to do it again. You have to commit to that. And you have to be really sorry about it and really regret about it. So you have to go through these steps. During the time of the temple, the tabernacle and the temple, you could use also the offering or the sacrifice to create that atonement, which means basically it is to show that, yes, we human beings, we are not complete. and whoever does not make any mistakes. So life is about trial and error. Doesn't matter how much you study at school, university, internship, whatever, you always, as a human being, one case is not like another case. It doesn't matter if it's talking about opening a restaurant, or being a judge or a policeman, or being a plumber. It doesn't matter. Each of these jobs, we have to take it seriously, because this is a job that basically relates us to other human beings, the whole planet, to make it better, to make it more complete. We make mistakes because we have all kinds of dark, negative energies to correct. And so when we have this process of recognition, acknowledgement, regret, inner pain, sadness, and then the whole thing about commitment to do better, the part of the offering was part of it in order to complete the process. Now that we do not have the offerings, as we said, we make the offerings through the prayers and the meditations. So the Zohar continues that verse 53, to make it short, the whole thing of the offerings, לשבר הכוח והתוקף של דין, the offerings had the power to break the judgment, to smash the judgment and remove the judgment. שכתוב רוח נשברה, a broken spirit. שהרוח החזק הזה של הדין נשברה, you have to break the judgment, the spirit of judgment. והאדם צריך אז לעמוד על המזבח ברוח נשבר, and a person should stand by the altar with a broken spirit, והתבייש ממעשיו, should be ashamed of his actions, כדי שיהיה נשבר רוח התקיף הזה, to break that strength, that is imaginary strength that you think that you're strong, and therefore you can make all of those atrocities. But what you do is basically the judgment, the force of judgment that you aroused as a human being. You created an entity of negative energy by the breaking of the spirit, by the atonement and the repentance. We sweeten the judgment, and then mercy will overcome the judgment. And of course, how do we know somebody really did the job? If you are not angry about everybody, and you're not really trying to criticize everybody with a love of judgment, you know that you sweetened the judgment. However, if you feel that you made something wrong, and in order to correct it and to atone it, you must be judgmental about other people's actions, and you're angry about others, you're doing something really wrong, you're really off the chart. You're really not doing the job. And what can we do? A lot of people do not realize that. And so, the book of VaYikra is about correction, is about atonement, is about tuning ourselves up. And basically, we're starting a new journey for the next weeks, of around 10 weeks of the reading of the book of VaYikra, Leviticus, in which we will basically learn how to tune ourselves up, how to raise our negativities, how to make our correction properly. And good luck for all of us with that. Thank you so much.